Hi, thanks for coming back. In the last video I said that I'd do a video on knots, so I'm going to do a couple of knots, a little bit of history on myself. I'm not a climber. I'm a maritime professional. I'm a Master 200 officer the Watch 500 and ship's AB for the Merchant Navy. I'm blue flag merchant, red flag merchant. I've ran pilot vessels, wind farm vessels, lifeboats, ferries, tugboats, and I've undertaken coding of vessels. So I coded 2 pilot boats and I project managed, first in the country under the new UK law, an electric ferry, and I was the first person in the country to do it when a ton of people told me that I couldn't. I've worked the deck for a long time. Worked in a chandler's. I used to be in Salcombe for a long time, and I used to splice rope commercially for customers, and working with rope all my life. The knots, we're going to talk about just a couple of basic knots. I'm going to give you a little bit of description of some of the ropes and talk about the pluses and minuses of these ropes. Every rope, a piece of rope that I've undertaken with a knot always works. The trick with knots and rope is identifying the task in hand and then using the appropriate rope and the appropriate knot in combination. Combination of knots and rope types can sometimes fail. It's not because of the technique, it's because of the knowledge that's being used incorrectly. So what I'll show you, we're going to just do about 4 knots. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. If there's enough interested, we'll do a lot more on the complexities of knots and how they work and how they fail. And again, if there's enough interest, I'll go through some splicing. We can splice 3-strand and multi-braid as well. We can do multi-plat, octoplat, 16-plat, 3-strand, 5-strand, all that kind of stuff. I've done some wire splicing in the past. I'm not going to teach that though. When you engage with the knots that you're doing, bear in mind that for when you tie a knot, you're reducing the strength of the rope. More often than not, if the rope in load, so as soon as the knot comes under load, the rope itself will have a safe working load limit. Say it's a ton, and you stick a knot on it. What you do is you reduce the capacity of that rope performance, so the rope won't fail, but the knot will. The knot doesn't fail, but what happens is you put so much stress around one point of the rope instead of the length of the rope. It causes the knot to fail, but not in this idea that you think it was, more over the fiber. So it's a combination of the knot and the rope coming under stress in one local area, and it fails. So every time you tie a knot, it reduces or introduces a risk factor. So just bear that in mind as well. Okay. I've got a little table set up here. I've got some tools that I've acquired and I use over my career, so I'm not going to use these, but again, if there's interest, we'll go over and talk about them and how they're used. It's just to add some gravity to the weight of the subject. I'm quite passionate about it, I'm a bit nerdy about it, so we'll have a look at this. So on the table here, I've got a chef's caramelizing gun for unnatural, man-made fibers, polyesters, nylons, that kind of stuff, polypropylenes. This seals the end, so once you cut a rope, you use this to reseal the end of the rope to stop them fraying. Cutting board. This is a little splicing fid. This is a thing called hollow fids. They're Swedish Selma fids. There's a marlin spike, a large one for large rope or wire. A pair of scissors. This is a marlin spike, but it's a wooden one for natural fibre yarns and weaves. Knife. This is a sailor's needle. It's got an eye in the end. And you can push that through and then pull it back with a thread in it. This is a marlin spike, sailor's bobbin needle, palm, That's a moon knife. Box of toys. This is something we'll be using earlier. I'm going to use this to demonstrate a particular knot, 2 knots. This is called a muscle box. We've got a 3 and 4 there, so that's the ratio on that muscle box. This is what we're going to use to do the strain test on one of the, or 2 of the knots. Box of sewing needles. This is a fishing net needle for fixing fishing nets, or I used to fix safety nets on the bottom of gangway ladders, and various odds and sods. Okay, just a small selection of rope types. This one is a multi-plat. This is a 16-plat braid on braid splice, so that's an outer sheath. I'll show you later on closer up. It's an outer sheath with an inner core. This is a traditional 3-strand, and it's made of polypropylene. Characteristics like it floats. This is a Dyneema. This is a paracord, and this is Spectra. So the 16 plat, what you've got is an outer core of multiple plats, and then in the center you've got another braid. This one is quite, when you get this new, a good way to check it is just gently grab it and then push the ends together. It's like a Chinese finger puzzle, you see it swell up. Now that's not very, it's not moving much. That's because it's been used a lot, it's been under tension, so it loses its stretch. It's been used for many, probably as a main sheet or a topping lift on a yacht. So the fibres have closed over. Still good to use, but probably not so good for the purpose it was intended on someone's boat. They do suffer from degradation, UV light degradation, salt water, that kind of stuff. So that's a multi-plat. Traditionally, when we're using a rope, we have a working end and a standing part. If you put a bend in it, that's called a bite. Working end, standing part, bite. Next rope. Next rope is a 3-strand. This is polypropylene. It floats. I've put whipping on this. We've got on the end we've got a sailmaker's whip. Then we've got common whip, and then we've got West Country whip. I've probably got that the wrong way round because that's just how I do things sometimes. Anyway, same thing, working end, bite, standing part. This is a 3-strand. It's called 3-strand because if we push it apart, there's 3 parts to it. 3 strands. 3-strand. Okay. Next one is a Dyneema. This is a high-tech rope, very popular with the climbing community and the sailing community as well. This is a very high-strength, low-stretch rope. Doesn't like abrasion, and you can usually tell a Dyneema because when you do something like that and then that, it kind of holds its shape. It's got memory. Very strong rope, very strong, but low resistance to abrasion. But popular on racing dinghies, sailing dinghies, and quite popular in the sailing community as well. I think we all know this one. Very popular amongst the camping community. That's just a paracord. Again, it's a multi-plat, and if you do the same as we did earlier, you can push that. It's got an inner and outer core, so you've got a sheath with an inner core, so it's giving you a composite rope. This is one of my favourites. I love this rope. This is a Spectra, and it's a hollow braid, and you'll get more of the effect when I push this together. This could be spliced as well. This is a high strength rope, popular in the sailing community, really strong, really expensive, but an awesome bit of rope. I use this on my hammock, and I've got 2 lines that go out, and I've made I forget what they call them, but you can splice them in such a way that you can adjust the tension on the lines with it. It's like a soft shackle. This will hold your weight all day long. Incredible rope. Right. The knots we're going to do a Bowline, a Clove hitch, and a hitch or half hitch. And then we use those along with a Prusik. We use a Prusik and a rolling hitch as well. The Prusik and a rolling hitch. Prusik's a climbing knot. We don't use it a lot in the maritime industry. It's got the similar qualities as a rolling hitch. Rolling hitches and Prusiks are great knots, really usable for campers for doing taut line hitches, for tensioning your canvas bivvies and your shelters and your tarps. We're going to put those two knots under a load test to see how much weight they take, because they're quite interesting. We'll tie the knots on the table and then we'll use them in application on something, and that's where we'll test them too. So Bowline, Clove hitch, round hitch half turns, a Prusik and a rolling hitch. Hope you can see this well enough. So when we get the working in, I suggest that you just copy what I do. There are many ways to tie knots. They don't tie all the same way, they can be tied differently, but when you get more confident you can tie them differently. But for now, to keep it simple, working end in the right hand standing part is going to be the Bowline. First part you're going to do is a loop. The loop is quite important. If you get it wrong, it won't work. Don't do the loop underneath. Don't do that. The loop, when you do the loop, always over the top. Okay, loop over the top. There's the working part. This is a tree. This is a rabbit. Rabbit comes up the hole, goes around the tree and back down the hole. Hold the rabbit and this part here, grab the tree and pull. And then this is called dressing, just dress the knot, tied it up. And what you should end up is something like that. So do that again. Working end. Loop over. So you've got the hole. Rabbit comes up the hole, round the back of the tree, right? Up the hole, round the back of the tree, back down the hole, hold those two together, grab the tree and pull, and then dress, just tidy the knot up, and you should end up with the look like that. With the Bowline, this part is usually on the inside of the loop. You can do it so it's on the outside as well, but traditionally it's on the inside. This is, when it comes under load, this is a constricted knot. Once it's under load, you can't untie it. That's the back of it. Next knot we're going to do is the Clove hitch. I'm going to use this pipe here. Clove hitch is good for going round objects, for example, but you can do it round handrails, poles, that kind of thing. And the idea with a Clove hitch, come around over the top of the object with the working end, out one side and across, back underneath, up through and back on itself. And what you end up with is that on the back of it. And again, this is your object, over the top, there's your working end, come out underneath, across, underneath again, and then underneath that standing part. A Clove hitch is a constricting knot. The tighter you pull it when it comes under load, the tighter it gets. Similar to the Bowline, it can't be undone once it's under load. There is a downside with this knot. If you jiggle it a lot, it does tend to come undone. There you go, see, it's doing what I've just said. It's an interesting knot. There is a way of sorting that out. We'll come over the top. Don't forget the crossover. When you've crossed over, come underneath again. There's your Clove hitch. Now it is a nice knot. I use it for fenders on boats a lot. This standing part, we're going to do a little hitch on it. So we're going to just come round the standing part with the working end and put a hitch in it. That tends to be a bit more secure. Okay, clove hitch. The next one we're going to do is a rolling hitch. Now, rolling hitch will be like the Prusik. The rolling hitch, when you tie it, you can tie it to another rope, another object. I'll show you how to use it. We'll do it on something a bit more stable. But the idea with the rolling hitch is it slides one way but not the other. It will only slide in one direction. And when it's used cleverly, it's got a lot of advantages. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the working end. You need a bit of length in this one. Leave the standing part to one side. Working end, you're just going to wrap around the object a couple of times. Minimum 3. When you've done the 3, comes round again but comes underneath and then through. Now with this one, if we pull in the direction of the main body of rope here, what you've got is it won't slide this way, but it will slide that way. And then there's tension. And what we're going to do to demonstrate this is we'll put it under load and we'll measure the loading capacity of it. We'll do it again. So you need a bit more length. Minimum 3 turns. 1, 2, 3. Comes round. Instead of going over the top, come underneath that and then through itself. Tighten it. Rolling hitch. Okay. Won't go that way, will go that way. So you can slide, adjust, and then tension. I'll show you a Prusik. A Prusik uses a piece of string. You have to make a loop out of it. And it just occurred to me that you'll need to know another knot. You don't necessarily, you can use a couple of knots, but we're going to use a reef knot for this one. Reef knot's quite simple. So you get your 2 ends, you go left, so left over, then right over and pull. And what you've got is like a figure of 8. Okay, so I'll just do that again. 2 ends, left hand first, left over. Once the left has gone over, turn it round. That's now in your right hand, so then it goes right over. Left over, then right over, and then you've got a reef knot and your loop. Okay, and we'll show this one in application. It'll make more sense. So this one here, or they will always be on the inside of the loop that you start with. At the end, a minimum of 3 to start with, come through and then pull it on itself and it'll constrict. And that's your Prusik. We'll put it under a test. So I've tied the Prusik up, put the muscle box on there, on the load part of the Prusik, and secured the box here, and we can use this to load it and measure the kilograms of pull. And that's the principle of it, is that it the design is that it constricts around what it's tied around and it grips. But the other good thing about this one is when it's off load, So take the load off it, you can push it up. This knot, like the rolling hitch, is effective when it's under load. When it's under load it constricts and it starts working. So the next knot is the rolling hitch. It's the same principle as the Prusik. The good thing with the Prusik is it slides both ways and it doesn't work until it's under tension. The rolling hitch, as long as it's not under tension, you can pull it down, but once it's under tension it locks one way, and it locks it in the position where the rope's bound, and it will slide the opposite way to where it's bound. So this is not in load. So you saw there that once you put it under load it doesn't shift. The idea of putting the weight on it is that if it did shift, the knot shifted, it would fail. So both the Prusik and the rolling hitch held in place. With all knots, the ownership is down to you to master them and use them safely, all right? Like I said, I've been tying knots for a long time, and I've tied people to them, boats to them, objects. They've been lifted and all sorts of stuff. They do work as long as they're done properly. So experiment in the field safely, use them responsibly, research and practice them, and keep your skills polished. So I recap with the Prusik. There's a loop we made earlier over the top. I'm going to try and do this one-handed, through the center, through the middle, through the middle, through the middle, push together. Won't slide that way, won't slide that way, but take the tension off it, move it to that end, move to that end, move to the middle, retension it, put the load on and pull, and it won't move. Okay, about a round turn 2/2 hitches, didn't we? So again, this is our object. Could be a rail, could be a buoy. Round the rail, back on itself. Again, trying to do this single-handedly. Hitch, hitch. Now this knot will slide, doesn't matter, but it's a good lifting knot. It's good for lifting and secure. So 2 hitches with a round turn, and again working end goes around the object, come round again, one loop, second loop, when you use your knots, you're going to have to learn to use them responsibly. It's taken me years to get confident with them because it involves a good working knowledge of the knot, its capacity, where it fails, where it doesn't fail, and obviously about your ropes as well. So seek professional advice on your knots if you're going to use them from anything other than tying up your tarps and your tents. Go to climbing schools. Their knot theory is superb, so learn how to do your knots there. My industry, I don't have to climb. Well, there is a bit of climbing up ship's masts, and obviously we work over the side of the ship. My knot theory is similar but not the same, and but it's proven. Like I say, the knots do work, and if there's any interest we can go into it a bit more. We can talk about the rope theory as well, some more fancy knots. And if there is significant interest, I'll teach people how to splice. So that'd be a 3-strand splice, multi-plat splice, octoplat, 16-plat, that kind of stuff. Hollow braid splice on the Spectras. They're quite nice, they're real quick. You need a couple of tools, but we can talk through that as well. Leave comments in if you like. Say if there's interest, I'll do something a bit more explanatory. But remember, stay safe with your rope work, use them appropriately, learn to respect the knots and the ropes and the positive and negative of using them. Thank you.